Welcome, you beautiful beings, back to another masterclass in the TUB 24 masterclass series. Hang tight. We've got a beautiful guest for you. All right, everybody, welcome back. Thank you for joining us for another beautiful masterclass. This is going to be powerful. We've got Becky Robbins joining us, and we're going to dive into her world. But before we do that, Rose, I'm going to turn it over to you for some housekeeping, and then we'll introduce Becky, and we'll get right into this. Does that sound good?
That sounds perfect. And welcome, everybody, again. And a really gentle reminder that we have an offer on our tickets for the Ultimate Birmingham Experience 24. So at the moment, we will put the link in the comments, and you're able to buy a ticket, an installment ticket, if you put down £50 before the 25th of December. It's likely that we will extend this, but as a Christmas present for yourself or any loved ones, put down the £50 deposit, and then you can pay off the rest of the ticket in installments after the new year for 125 times 3. So that's live and active right now. And just know that as part of that, you are co-creating this event with us. Do also come and join us in the Ultimate Birmingham Experience Facebook interest group. A mouthful. Again, I'll put the link into the comments, because in there you can get all the information, access to all the other masterclasses. We also have a dedicated YouTube channel where this masterclass will be being placed, as well as Anchor's Jane's masterclass. Who else have we had? Dominic London's masterclass, and all Gary Marler, and all upcoming masterclasses in early 2024. So I'll pop all those links in the comments for you to access.
It's excellent. So for those that don't know what 50 pounds is in America, that's $63.60.
Thank you.
So put that down, and then you can do installments on the rest, which is actually very useful. So time to get the tickets too. While gas prices are low, it's a great time to buy your flights. So ahead of the new year. Any other items we need to cover?
No, that's the main bulk of things. And that really, when I spoke to Becky, when I was organizing this masterclass, I really framed it to her like, this is an early Christmas gift for everyone and anyone who has a deep understanding of being, and for people who are just really curious as to what on earth it's all about. And when Becky and I have spoken about what it means, we were really keen, and Becky was really keen to really land it in real experience. So I think that's something that I'm really looking forward to hearing this evening.
Yeah, I think we're not where
I am.
Yeah, we're not going to be very nebulous here. That's my understanding. We're going to be very clear. I'm looking forward to this. Perfect. Let's dive in. So I'm going to introduce our guest here. We've got joining us Becky Robbins, and we're excited to have her here because she's a modern day Renaissance woman. So Becky's life story is a tapestry of diverse experiences, from her impactful careers in medicine and personal development to pioneering the coaching industry alongside her former husband, Tony Robbins. But that's just the beginning. Becky has evolved into a renowned and collected artist, with her work being so esteemed, it sets up the journey to the moon aboard Elon Musk's Viper rocket. So that's pretty rad. Becky's current passion project, The Art of Art, showcases her talent for delving into the creative minds of some of the world's most powerful and prolific creators of our time. Through her show, she offers us a personal glimpse into the lives, beliefs, and processes of these artists, inspiring action and fostering a community brimming with creativity. Beyond the screen, Becky Robbins Connected offers a unique mentoring membership where participants can engage with Becky directly, drawing from her vast well of wisdom to find joy, peace, and deep meaning in life. So get ready to dive into a conversation brimming with creativity, inspiration, and insights from a woman who's not just living her life, but redefining it at every turn. Welcome to the show, Becky. How did we do?
Wow. Okay. Here I am. I'm on board with all of you. Am I too short? Do you want me to sit on a
You're a
little?
little too short. Yeah, we can, not in attitude, so that's good, right?
I know. Listen, I'm 5'2", so I have to boost myself up a little bit.
I love it. I love
Well,
it.
thank you, thank you. I'm so happy to be here, and I would like to welcome you into my sacred space, which is behind me. I'm in my
Mm.
studio, and I say sacred space because I'm going to refer back to that in a minute. But I want to jump right into this because I want to allow time for you to ask me anything that you would like that would be relevant to you in
Yeah,
your life. And so, but
I'll
I've
let you guide, and I may interrupt as needed here, just to keep the conversation flowing. So this is
yeah,
perfect.
love
We'll
it.
let
I
you
love
roll.
it. In my, I've had the blessing of being in the presence of Steve Hardison for I think 60 hours is a amount of time so far. And can you imagine what that's like? I mean, it's like drinking from a fire hose, as they say. And
Yeah.
one of the things that in the very, very beginning that he said to me, and it's also in scripture, I think somewhere, is that you're never not creating. And one of the things that another way to say that is I am a creator creating ceaselessly, that I'm never not creating. So when someone says to me, I'm not creative, um, it's not true. So if you've ever thought about yourself not being creative, I think part of it is because you haven't you haven't realized the impact that you have, both when you say that to yourself, but also when then you jump on into that journey of creating for yourself. And creating is not just like creating painting or music or any of those wonderful things like the Art of Art show, which I'm going to tell you how that happened too. But I think it's like embracing your imagination, embracing the fact that you have access to magic. And one of the things I was asked about recently is about, can you tell me what your goals are for this coming year? And I said, I don't create goals because I don't believe in goal setting. And the reason why I don't is because to me, I also don't believe in limitation. And I'm a freedom seeker. And I think we all are at our core. We all want the freedom that we get from living our best life, or the freedom we get from doing what gives us the most joy and passion and excitement. But if we don't take a stand for ourselves that we deserve that, then we kind of revert back to goal setting. And what my belief is, and for myself, and which has been fruitful in so many ways, especially this past year, is that I like to say that I want something to happen that's beyond my wildest dreams, beyond my wildest imagination. That's what I want in my life. I don't want to accomplish X by X date, the whole resolution thing, all of that, although that's good to have like a marker and a benchmark along the way, but to measure yourself, like how are you doing? And I think that's important too. But beyond your wildest dreams has been what's created some things this year that are truly, I could have been beyond my absolute wildest dreams. And I want you to take a stand for yourself and say, like, I am the master of creativity. Because when you do that, I mean, that's how my document happened. I started in my document, which is so powerful for me. And I think I'll be speaking about that a little bit in Birmingham. That my document is really, once I added a mechanism to my document that came to me as a result of like the third statement in my document that says, I am made of God and I create magic in
Mm.
every area of my life. And because sometimes in a document, if you've done a document, you're writing things that's sort of like, I hope I am, or I wish I was, or an affirmation that you don't quite believe it yet. But when I get into the place where I put that phrase, I am made of God, in front of all the things that are following in my document, wow, it just like reminds me of who I am, that I am. My belief is that, not my belief for all of us, but my personal belief is that we are all an emanation of one source that is all intelligent, all loving, and we are made of that. So if I go through my life with that, and that's when I say take a stand for yourself. If you take a stand and say, this is who I am, so anything is capable. If it's a financial thing, like I am made of God, and as such, I like those words, as such, I'm devoted to the fun, fulfilling and spectacular financial abundance I'm creating for myself and others. That makes it so real. Then I know that that's absolute. That's not a wish and a hope. It's that then I live. That's when we talk about being. I'm being that as I'm going through my day. So yes,
yeah,
jump in.
can we highlight, because you're hitting already huge nuggets that I see, right? Number one is that we're surrounded by magic. We're surrounded by a universe that is stocked full of everything we could ever need to create anything we could possibly imagine, right? That's number one. Number two is that you don't limit yourself to what you can see. You don't limit yourself to your goals and visions and limitations. And I love the idea of a goal being limiting. And that's what we do to ourselves. Oh, I'd like to do this. And that's all we can think of. So to think that I'm worth more than that, even the things that would blow my mind. The third is that you are God. You are part of that. And as such, right, you can create anything you can imagine in this world, and there is no limitation. And then it all ties back to your being, right? And that's a statement of being right there, is as God, or I am that, right? That statement of being is what creates your ability to imagine into this magical world where there truly is no limitation to resources, opportunities, people. Real quick, and then I'll turn it back over, is having a conversation with Kellen Flukiger the other day. And there's this quote that says, no one is coming. And the realization with this quote is no one is coming is because they're already here. No resources are coming because they're already here. So you've hit on some points that I think need to be highlighted, is that we are swimming in an abundant universe. We have all potential and possibility. We are God. God is us. And it's up to us to see it. So as you pick up from there, what would you share next in this conversation?
I would say something I read that I loved is creativity is a sort of revenge against circumstance. I mean, if you think about that, it's like, okay, I might find myself in a certain circumstance, but if I figure out like what is my desire, and this can go in many directions, but I want to talk about what people think creativity is. First of all, like what they think creativity actually is, like painting or music or dancing, or, to be able to create something out of nothing. I want to talk to that for a second, because first of all, and I did a little video about this. Chris Chitty sent me a message last week about this, about my daughter is an actor, and long ago she was doing an improv class, and the instructor for the improv class was saying, you need to dare to suck at something until you get good at it. You have to dare to suck at it, because you're not going to be good at something in the beginning. So I go back to when I first started doing something called, I was trying to figure out what to do with myself in life, because I had just gotten out of my marriage. I had been surrounded by thousands of people, and now I was alone. I felt like I didn't know what to do with myself. I was trying to create a new version of myself, as you talked about so kindly, as a Renaissance woman. I think that's character building, to try a bunch of different things that you've never thought that you might be preliminarily interested in, but you're not really sure because you don't trust yourself. So I ran into a friend of mine and who had retired, and I said, what are you doing with yourself? And she said, Becky, I'm taking gardening. I'm learning gardening. I'm taking piano lessons, Spanish lessons, art lessons. And you should come to me with one of those things. And I said, okay, I'll come with you to your art lesson. And truly it was the beginning, like a beginning class, because I've always loved art. I never imagined myself as being an artist. I've only been doing art for less than 15 years, maybe, like between 10 and 15 years. I never imagined myself to be that. But I used to buy big, beautiful coffee table books that showed amazing art, and I would go reading the fine print. Like, how did they do that? It was fascinating to me how someone could have an idea and then be able to actually create that. So my very first class that I went to as an art class, and you might want to do this too, is that we had a big drawing paper and a pencil, and the instructor said, put a dot right here on this side, the left side of the page. And then put a dot, just a pencil dot, put a dot over here on the other side of the page. Now I want you to go back to this one dot, take your pencil, and without moving your pencil, I want you to only look at that last dot. You could do this even if you want to right now. Look at that last dot and now just draw a straight line over to that dot. And believe it or not, it's an absolutely straight line. And there's so many metaphors about that, like eye-hand coordination, and watch the ball hit the bat, and where you focus is where you're going to go, and all those kinds of things. And that started me off in the version of art. And now I feel like I've got my 10,000 plus hours in, and for sure.
Yeah. Think about that though. At our age, I say our age, we're different ages, but in our lifetimes, we have hours and hours, hundreds of thousands of hours of doing, right? And that becomes our being. And I love the comment that your daughter had. You got to be willing to suck at something. In my book, The Art of Accomplishment, that's what I wrote in there in 2011. And it's true. We don't want to suck at things. We don't want to be terrible at it, but you have to for long enough to get good at it, right? And here you are, you go to an art class where you don't know what you're doing. And you just discover, oh, I kind of like this.
Yeah.
And now you've put in the time where you're really amazing at it, phenomenal at it. But it started with not being that. It started with a willingness to be curious, a willingness to step into something else. And you also hit on the point of your dreams might be too limiting on where your potential is and where you see your potential. But when you open up like you do with your statements, you open up to the possibility that God has for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
That there really is an amazing artist in there, way more than you think you could ever be, if you'll just open up to that possibility. Can you speak to that a little more? Like, how important is it to open up to allow that to come in, that there's more?
I'm glad you asked me that question, because back at the beginning of the whole COVID thing, there were so many people that were struggling because they didn't know what to do with themselves. And I was not one of those people, because I had my art. And I think that the whole dare to suck thing, you really have to dare to suck at things, but to try new things, and then have that becomes something that came from a story of mine as long ago. I went with a group of Hollywood folks, a whole bunch of famous people, and we were going to go down the Grand Canyon in these rafts. And the Grand Canyon has rapids and scary, it's not just an easy drifting down the canyon on the Colorado River. But so we walked down to the bottom, all the way down to the bottom of the canyon. It was like 115 degrees Fahrenheit. And we all got to the bottom of the canyon. And then we had to repack all of our bags into waterproof containers. And everybody was getting grouchy and hot and tired. And when we got to the bottom of the canyon and we were repacking our bags, the guide said, okay, we're going to do a briefing on the river, the rules of the river. And he told us a few different things. And then this was the part that I loved the most. He said, now, and think about this in relationship to your life. He said, so the river is moving fast, always moving fast. And you are going to be hanging on for dear life to the side of the raft. And because we're going so fast, if you fall out, which is likely, you're likely to fall out on this trip at some point. And if you do fall out, you have to get yourself to the side of the river and get out on the riverbank, and figure out how you're going to get now down to where we are, because we'll pull over as soon as we possibly can. But it's going to be up to you to participate in your own rescue. Think about that. You have to participate in your own rescue, because for me to have created my art long ago and had that as my sacred space to go to when all hell was breaking loose in the world, that saved me. And I also want to say that, it's become a practice for me, which I call an esteemable practice. I've got a few of those things that I do for myself to support myself and I love having beauty around me. I grabbed a bunch of pine boughs the other day and stuck them in a vase in my living room. And it just gives me pleasure. My studio is a sacred space for me. I don't do other things in here. I don't have, this is a very important space for me. I keep it that way. I call in the angels. I have a little ritual that I do before I start painting, so that I'm in a clear space. yesterday I found myself listening to a book that was recommended on for me to listen to on Audible from a great author that I'd listened to before. And it was started out with this horrible, heinous story of some tragedy that happened in a family. And I turned it off and returned the book because I thought, no, I can't do that. I can't listen to music that has lyrics in it that could hijack me into another area. So I'm careful, and I have a reverence for myself in this space where I want to be creative. And I think it's good to have that kind of an idea about honoring yourself and who you are, as an emanation of the infinite, that you're going to respect yourself in that way and respect your space in that way, and with whom you choose to hang out and what you read and what you watch. And I'm judicious about that. I'm not rigid, but I kind of am, because it allows all that to flow and come through me. Otherwise, there's no space for a beyond my wildest dreams thought to even come in.
So pulling these together, the idea of the rafting trip down the Grand Canyon, and you've got to participate in your own rescue, and you don't have to know perfectly how you're going to do it, but you got to participate in it. And how many times are there in life where people don't know what to do next? As an example, yesterday, somebody took my girlfriend's dog, walked off with it, and it was gone. And we had no clue, helpless,
Wow.
right? It's like a child to her. And so we did what we could do, right? We participated in our own rescue, so to speak, and just did all the things we could think of doing, not knowing how it was going to turn out. Luckily, the dog ended up at a pet shelter and got scanned and was returned, but we had to do our part. The dog ended up in 3 cities away, and there's no way we could have, figured that out without doing our part, right? And when it comes to our own rescue, you don't always know how or what or who or when it's going to come about, but you've got to do your part. Would you agree with that? Or is that, am I making it too nebulous there? Like you've got to do something, right? Whatever you can think to do.
I agree with you. And when I talk about character building, and people are talking to me about, a lot of people ask me, like, how did I, like, about my former life, I call it, because I feel like I've lived so many lifetimes in this one lifetime. But when people talk to me about my former life of personal development, I say, what's interesting about personal development is you need to develop yourself. And part of that is creating a variety of experiences and parts to your life that are, like, I learned to fly helicopters. I'm really happy I did learn to do that. I didn't keep on doing that, but I'm glad that I did it. I'm glad that I learned how, and I have all the things that I have become as a result of that, and who I'm now being as a result of that. I'm a scuba diver. I love hiking. I love biking, like all the sports kinds of things. And I think, and learning is like the biggest thing for me. I love learning all the time. And I think those are part of the participating in your own rescue stuff and building your character and your personal development, because it requires you to go outside, like you said, outside of your comfort zone. But outside of your comfort zone is where everything lies. I want to tell you about desire for a second, because you had, Nick, a desire so strong to find the dog, right? That wasn't that you let that desire go. You kept on going until you figured out the solution. I think that desire, I was asked by Ben Buckley. He said, what is your greatest desire? Like, think about it and don't answer the question. He said, for a couple of days, I want you to sit in it. Like, what do you really, really desire in life? And what is your passion? And really think about that. And I did. I sat with it, and without coming up with a quick fix of an answer that would make me feel like I'm like, okay, I got, mission accomplished. I'm a meditator too, and I do something called heart math, which I highly recommend. It's the most beautiful practice of breathing as if your heart were your lungs, and doing the breathing and deep breathing, like to the count of 8 in and 8 out, where everything is focused on your heart. It's actually an app and other stuff about that you can get a hold of me and ask me about that. But I do heart math in the morning for like 15 or 20 minutes. And after that, because of that, absolute focus. The benefit of that is you're in coherence. Your brain and your heart are in coherence, where your brain isn't informing your behavior and who you're being. Your heart is informing your behavior and who you're being. And when you get into that coherence, it happens by only focusing on what you love, what's beautiful, what your dog, your family, and at the end of that, I do it with my document. Actually, I go through every element of my document, and the app measures like how in and out of coherence you are. But the benefit of doing that is at the end of that, you fall into a deep meditation. And while I was in that deep meditation, pure silence, which I don't always get to, but I love that feeling when I get there and it all kind of clicks. I fall into that. Is I had this, all of a sudden, what came in for me was a vision of a man who's no longer alive, who I wasn't like a devotee of watching his show, but it was called the Inside the Actor Studio with James Lipton. And that idea came into my head, or just that vision. And the next thing that came into my head was like, to do a show where I create a show like that, where I'm interviewing people in the arts. And that was it. And that is where this show called The Art of Art happened for me. And the meaning I have from that, which is so profound for me, is that, I mean, this came straight from the divine. This is like a divine intervention of what is really important for me to do with my desire. It was like nothing I could say, it's not going to work, or if I run into an obstacle, I'll just give it up. I won't do it. I am doing it because it came to me in that way. So
can we, before you go into that, I want to, man, you are just so powerful, Becky, and you moved through this because this is your way of being. But just to highlight these, you said earlier that creativity is an act of revenge on circumstance, right? And that people need to participate in their own rescue. They do what they can do. But you also created a space in your world that allows you to step into that creative energy, right? So it's not just things fall in your lap. You're putting yourself in a space to be in tune with what God has for you, or the universe has for you, and so it's like when you create that space, and we might talk about this a little bit, is how people can create that space in their own house, even if they don't have a dedicated room like you do to it, where it's almost like a holy space, right? Where you go in and create that. And then you have these downloads that come in, and anybody that's in the creative space knows about downloads. Like they just, when you get in line and in tune with your essence and your connection with God or the source or the universe, you have these downloads that are uniquely yours, that nobody else can bring into this world. And the art of art is one of those downloads, but it took you being in a space to listen. You had to slow down and really be with, what do I desire? And you really had to slow down with and tune into who you are. And you had to tune into you completely so that you could be in a space where this could be presented to you. Can you talk about that a little more in detail? And then if you'd like to go into the art of art, go ahead and do that. But how important is it for people to really get themselves in a space of listening? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I want to tell you something so beautiful that there's a beautiful book called Way of the Heart. And I love this book so much. And just the last 2 days, I was reading a story about like a farmer who is going to grow his crop. And all the other farmers around him were in a big rush to get the seeds and put them in the ground and water them and then expect the harvest. But then like it rained too much, or the sun did, or whatever. And so it was just not like a rewarding, wonderful profession, except for this one farmer. And this one farmer was so careful about which seeds he picked. Like he picked like the most healthy seeds, the best seeds. And when he picked those seeds, he waited to get for his intuition to tell him this is the right time to plant those specific seeds. And when he planted those specific seeds, the next thing was to care for them and cultivate those seeds, because they're such precious insights. Each little seed needs to be cultivated. And I think that's what I'm talking about, is the cultivation of those, so that you take care, that you we can say I got a download, but wait a minute, what it takes to get that is, like you said, to get into a space and cultivate not only the space like here, but also cultivate each one of those little desires, those each cultivate it so that you're caring for it like you would a, a precious pet or a precious child, or like you're able to reach through this veil, this divine veil, and grab a miracle. And then what are you going to do with that miracle? Because then you also might have to dare to suck, because there might be times along the way that aren't perfect, that aren't to your liking. But then you go back and get into that zone again, where then when you don't know what to do, then you know what to do. Like to be so emptied out that there's, like, I walk up to my you can see behind me, my easel, there's a board in progress there, one of my art pieces. And I never plan it in advance. I don't plan anything except for the document board that I created, which I can talk about later. But this board, like, I walk up to it, I don't know what's going to happen. I might hear a bird singing outside. And then all of a sudden I'm thinking, oh, wow, that's amazing. That bird finally just got back from wherever it went for the winter. And now that, because they're not here they're not here now. It's December, but that bird singing all of a sudden is the most amazing thing. And I happen to have a book that's about birds, and I turned up. So I researched that, and I find out that songbirds, think about this, the miracle of God. Songbirds have, not all birds, songbirds have 2 sets of vocal apparatus, 2 sets. They can sing a harmony along with themselves. They can sing 2 songs at the same time. They can. So then I think, oh my gosh, I wonder what that looks like. Is there a great image that I could paint that is representative of that? And then, and then I'll find an image. And then if that image is something that a photographer took or something, I go back and ask for permission. Can I paint that? The elephant that I've shown on some things, and Steve purchased, or actually I gave Steve this beautiful elephant being pulled along by butterflies.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Thank you. That was a sketch made by an artist in the Netherlands. And I contacted him. I have one other image of his that I painted, which is a girl with an octopus on her head, because I'm an octopus lover. And I contacted him and said, would it be, he gave me permission initially to paint that, my version in color, into my work. And then there are people who said, oh my God, I would love to have that. So I contacted him and said, would you be willing? And I would love to pay you a royalty. So just 2 days ago, I sent to him a check for $328. And it was like, he never would have ever figured out how to do that. He sells his postcards for like
that
dollars.
Is amazing, right?
So we're co-creating for each other all the time. And I just think, but that was because I cultivated the seed that I've been given. If I get one of them.
Right. So this is huge right here. The timing of the seed. If I have a packet of seeds in my cupboard right here. And if I go out and plant them right now, they're all going to die. They're not going to do a thing. Right. But there are seeds that I can plant right now, and they would thrive in this environment. Right. And the timing of the seeds is like, you might have a desire or a seed that shows up in your life, but the timing is off. And then paying attention to the timing, and then the cultivation of it once it is planted is part of what you're talking about here. That, I wrote The Giants and the Smalls back in 2009, but it wasn't the right time. Right. It didn't get released until 2020. And it's the desire was there, the cultivation to that point, the germination was there, but it took until 2020 to actually release the book. Right. In you, it's like you have these desires or these ideas. And I love the board behind you, because it's just a creative process. It's a demonstration of that creative process in you, as you're collecting the seeds. And then you're looking at, when do I plant this one and where does it go? And then you're piecing those together. I'd love for you to address this, because I think it ties into this. Can you see that screen there? Mm-hmm. In regard to the downloads or the desires, are they always there? And are we so busy doing that we don't hear them or notice them? We're so busy doing stuff, is how I hear that.
Yeah.
That we miss them. How would you speak to that?
I would say that, yes, they are always there. Yes, there are miracles all around us. And you need to get into an empty space for those things to appear. Like, that's where the second half of your questions are we so busy? I think we need to be in such an open, spacious place within ourselves, that there's no Becky there. There's no wish I had more money. There's no wish I had a relationship. There's no why did that happen? It's just like pure emptiness. And out of the emptiness is what can come magic, because it's not magic if you've already figured it out. It's not a miracle until you are able to be so clear that you, without you can have a desire, but what my desire was, I didn't tell you that. My desire that came to me before I sat and meditated that day was my desire. My passion is my art, and my desire is to be in service. Like, I'm at the point of time in my life where I've acknowledged now that I've been around long enough and I've learned enough that I want to share that. That's why I'm doing my mentoring membership that I'm starting soon, like this coming January, which is around the corner, of being able to mentor people in large groups and one-on-one, because I feel like, okay, that came to me by asking, what do I desire the most? And being in service, and my art is in service, all those things. So, but I had to have the desire, get the download, but the download comes when you've got an open spaciousness of my identity isn't wrapped up in it. My ego is not wrapped up in it. It's like, it's back to the cultivation. That's the cultivation part,
So can we hang on that? Because
yeah.
Let's talk about cultivation, because there's two forms here. There's cultivation of the seed once it's planted, cultivation of that, the creation. There's a nurturing of it so that it can grow. And a lot of times we want to put our stuff on it and grow it the way we think it should grow, and not listen to it and have it tell us what it needs for that creation. Right.
Yeah.
But there's a cultivation of us to be able to even get into the space that you're talking about. There are many people that are probably watching this wondering, well, yeah, but how do you do that? So how do you get into that? I'm struggling with this in my life right now. I've got this challenge, or I've got a mental disorder that I'm working with. And I struggle to just even shut my mind off. I got the opportunity to interview Dominic, who's been commenting here on our show, and he dove into his story, and it blew my mind. Like, here's a man that not only had developmental challenges, but then developed schizophrenia, and then navigated through that to be able to get back into a space of service and philosophy. And that's where I'd like to hang for just a minute is, what would you share with somebody about creating that space that you're talking about? Like, very important to get into that space, but how do they get there? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And do you want to go there?
Well, I think I'm not entirely clear about your question, because you're bringing up looking at where you're coming from in your past. And of course, our past is, has defined us to a point, right?
Sure.
But it is not the definition of who I am any longer. I have a story I could tell you about being in a tiger cage. Do you want to hear that?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I back when I was married to Tony, we used to do these big events, huge events, like once or twice a year, where there were like more 1,000 people, like maybe 3,000 people were in the room at that point. And at the opening of the event, we had a big magic act and lasers and fire and music and everything. So people all came in the room, they're all excited about that. And then the show started. And this particular show started with the idea was they were going to put Becky in a cage and then put a big shroud thing over the cage, and then Becky would disappear. So the day before, we were doing rehearsals, and there's an actual tiger backstage, like a big tiger in a cage backstage. And the handler was saying, okay, stay back from the tiger that was in the dark. Listen, we're not going to rile up the tiger or anything. And so then we started rehearsing, and the shtick is, I'm going to reveal a magic thing, which I think magicians don't like that, but anyway, I'm going to.
But yeah, we'll just tell them not to watch this show.
Right? Yeah, right. I know, don't watch the show.
Yeah.
Because my definition of myself changed recently about that. So that's why I want to talk about like looking at your past and see what your definition is of that.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So
beautiful.
the idea is like, Becky walks out on stage. You know, I walk up this little set of stairs that put me in the tiger cage, and I get in, and I'm sort of like crouching down because, you know, it's a little cage. I'm crouching down, and there's bars in the front, and I'm acting like I'm afraid, because truly it was scary, because I want to tell you that behind me, like right here next to my shoulder, this tiger is breathing, and this tiger is not a happy tiger by then. Now there's like laser lights and fire things going off, you know, those big fire plumes and loud music and people screaming and all that. Now I'm in the cage right here with this breathing, this tiger, and between me and the tiger is like this tiniest like piece of like cardboard, for real. And underneath me is a trap door, and I'm supposed to, it's a good thing I'm short, and there's a trap door, and I'm supposed to lift up this lid, and I have to like put my feet first and go down into where those stairs are, because those stairs are hollow, and get my whole body into that, like shaped like stairs. And as soon as I get down there and that thing closes, the back of the is made to come down in the back where that tiger is, and all of a sudden the tiger, it gets access to the whole cage. If I screwed up, I would be in the cage with the tiger.
Holy crap.
So now I am in, and now I'm in the stairs, and now they roll the stairs off stage with me in them, and nobody knows that I'm in those stairs. Now I have to climb out of there and run as far and fast as I can, all the way to the back of the, you know, it's a huge hotel, you know, the back of the house, and all the way down this long corridor, come in the very back of the room and climb up some stairs and stand on a platform. And then here the light comes around, and here's Becky, and, you know, and everybody's applauding. And the way I was telling the story prior to this, yeah, we could applaud. Yeah. Anyway, I didn't die. I'm still here.
Right. We'll see all the clapping show up in the comments here. It's like,
yeah. The way I was describing it, though, is like, obviously Becky was the dispensable one.
Mm.
And how interesting that I would describe myself that way. And rather than being like heroic and amazing, and of course no one made me do it, I was just like, Becky's going to be the one to do it. And so I
oh man, what a thought, right? Like you would think, well, they don't really care if Becky gets injured or hurt or, you know, attacked by a tiger here. She's not that valuable, right?
Yeah.
Versus you are in a cage with a tiger. Like I haven't done anything even close to that.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, so, and we did these kinds of things all the time, you know, where it'd be Becky first, you know, Becky's, because I was leader of the trainer academy. I was leader of the coach academy. I was like, you know, all that. So of course, if we're going to ask them to do something, I'm going to ask myself to do it. And I was respected and expected to do it.
Yeah,
so
wow.
Those are kinds of things, like the definition we have of ourselves is malleable, because we're made of God, for God's sake, right? I mean, we can do anything we want to do, but we have to know it. Then we have to cultivate it and take the action that's required to cultivate it. And so, I mean, I believe that, I believe nothing's beyond my capability, except maybe some, you know, the obvious, but I'm, thank you, dispensable with brave and powerful. I do feel like that about myself, but it took me to get to here to do that. And I could have made that a shorter journey, I'm sure, with the kinds of things that all of us know to teach one another. Because you know what, I told Steve that story in the former version. And he was just like sitting there listening to it. And then he got this puzzled look on his face when he loved the story up until the point where I said Becky was disposable. And,
wow.
So I just look at that and feel like at any moment we can look at the stories that we have of our past and redefine those things so they support us in creating the garden that we're going to plant in. Another metaphor is that I also love, that's in that book too. It is like, look at that event. That event was neutral. You could say that event was just neutral.
Yeah.
Yep. It's written on a storyboard on paper. Here's how the opening of the show is going to go. Then there's that event, like this music, and then that Becky comes out.
No meaning given, nothing. It's just an empty story.
Right? No meaning, just a story. But then we have little pebbles that we pick up, and a little pebble, like they could pick up a pebble and drop it in the pond, which is my prerogative to do it the way I want to do it. And that ripple could be Becky's disposable, and then it gets to the edge of the pond and that starts rippling back. And so now Becky's defining herself as being irrelevant, not important, not wanted, not cared for, or I could, and at any moment you can change that. At any moment you can change that, because up to me
You
with
answered
in my hand.
you answered that perfectly. Like that question, going back to how do people get into that space? Well, it's all about what you're telling yourself. It's the story you choose to hold on to. Your comment here that we're made of God for God's sake, like two phrases there. For God's sake, like pay attention to it, and for God's sake, right? Like there's a higher purpose to your life. You're not just here to exist and just disappear one day. And some people do live it out that way. But you had a story that you were telling about, I'm just disposable. And you told the story from that, and it was believable and true. And anybody that heard it would say, wow, what a story. You really were disposable. And they would confirm it with you. They would buy that book. The problem is,
Nick, they would say, like, that's impossible. I mean, you're Becky Robbins. You did all this, you've done all that, but I have to believe it.
And it doesn't matter, right? If anybody else says it, if you don't believe it, nothing happens, right?
Yeah.
So getting into that space, even that, letting go of that story, would you call that cultivating your internal garden?
I would call it monumental, more than that, even. Like that created the opportunity for me to do the two things I'm passionate about and committed to, which is the show, The Art of Art, and also doing my own, beginning to be a mentor for people. Because without that, neither of those things could have even occurred to me. I've been told long ago I should start doing being coaching or something like that. And I rejected it for two reasons. One, I didn't feel like I knew enough yet, which is crazy because I'm always learning and growing and changing and all of this stuff.
I don't think people know this, Becky, but it should have been Becky Robbins, not Tony Robbins. Like truthfully, you did all the behind the scenes. Now maybe he'll fight me over this, but you were the one that helped set up all those programs.
I've had, this is truth telling. I have felt like that I was irrelevant to, that how could, I was the good one, all of that kind of stuff. I felt like, oh, wait a minute. How could I be not necessary? How could he not want me? I'm sure I'm speaking to all of us, about the various things that happen in our lives. How could I not be important? How could I be in this situation? All that kind of stuff. And it's just such fiction that we come up with in our heads. And yet the idea of taking a stand for ourselves, like now, if not now, I don't like using these cliche things, but the world as we know it right now, we can all agree. I don't watch the news, but it is hard to avoid it because it's in the collective all around us. So we're in crazy place right now. And I think where it is that the beauty of where we are is that things are bubbling to the surface that used to be hidden, whether it's corruption or anything, or including in our own lives. Like it's come bubbling to the surface. So let's take advantage of that and say, okay, this is the best. I just got chills saying that. Like let's do it for ourselves and let's leave a legacy for others.
I love this. I love this.
Legacy for others right now, because we are equipped, and every one of us that's on this show, you wouldn't have even, if you had not put a pebble in a pond that ripples out called life can be better, you wouldn't even, that ripple wouldn't have even come back to let you even watch this show right now.
In no way. Right. And so somebody saw value in themselves enough to even turn this show on.
So therefore pass it on. That's one of the most beautiful things about going to the event in Birmingham, and the one in Phoenix too, is that I do not know any other environment where I could meet such spectacular people as I've met in this past year and a half. Truly, truly. And I've met a lot of amazing people in my lifetime, famous people, and a lot of presidents of countries and all of that. Nothing compares to the quality of the kind of people that I've met in this last year and a half. I mean that with all my heart. I've told those people, if I haven't told each of you that listen to this, then I'm telling you now that you've had such an impact on me. And that's why to go to this event. I mean, I love the idea that it's a charity. Thank you, Matt, for making it be even more than it was. But I just want to say that, listen, to be around this kind of environment of people is infectious in the most amazing way, because you can't leave here and be the same as when you got there. It's like me sitting in front of Steve, or me talking to Gary on the phone, or me talking, I'm never the same as before the phone call. And
the
I
person.
cultivate that and then use it in my life, and not just feel like that was a great phone call. It's no, what do I get out of this? Like, what's going to happen? Kush, on Kush, like the hours of time he puts into preparation. Gary, he spends days in advance of his meeting with Steve and days after, like recounting in his journal everything that happened. Those are the people I want to hang out with.
Yeah. And that person that walks in the room won't be the person that leaves. They won't be the same if they'll allow it. Right. So it's still up to the individual to decide who they're going to be coming out of that room.
Same thing with reading the book. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the book is just, it's a portal for you to see yourself is essentially it. But it still comes back to, you're going to get out of this the way you're listening to it, the way you're reading it.
You know what? Honestly, the first time I read the book, I wasn't told anything about that. A friend brought it to me who also didn't know anything about it. And I got part of the way through the book, and all the way through, like the opening is probably the middle of the book, when the story is told about the man who was feeling like he had no more reason to live, that he was like, he may as well leave because his insurance would take care of his wife, and she was young and beautiful, and she would do better without him. And Steve showed up at his door. And the moment I read that page in the book, I have the page turned down in my book, is I started to cry. And I turned to my friend and I said, I have to meet this guy and talk to him. And she said, I know someone who knows someone. And that someone was Rebecca Holt. So I'm so grateful, but I didn't even read it that way before that. So, then when I turned back and started reading it about me, it's like, I had to really stop and think about some of those things. Like, is that really me? And how can I absorb that and apply that in my life? Questions?
Yeah. Well, but before we get there too, what else do you want to share today? We've got about 9 minutes, before we wrap up here. But what else do you want to touch on before we get to these questions? And they'll pop up on the screen here. You'll be able to see them.
Let's go straight to questions.
Okay.
We'll jump off of those.
Let's see what comes up here. And just touching on the space that you've created. So number one, it took you recognizing your value, but then creating a space for quieting that inner world even more, right? Allowed you to start seeing the desires and downloads. And then it became a matter of cultivation, that you had to be willing to suck at something long enough to get good at it. Right. And there's a willingness in that.
When I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. That's the grace, it says to me, Steve Hardison just tried to call me.
Did he?
I'm busy right now, Steve.
I'm busy, Steve. So here's a question.
In my document, it says, I am made of God, and as such, I am grace upon grace, and my consistency compounds. And the grace is for myself and for others,
Beautiful. If you want to tackle this. So, has diving deeper into art allowed you to express yourself more in other areas of your life too?
Yeah, for sure. Because in the beginning of doing my art, I had no idea that little images I found and then tried to reproduce and paint myself. I didn't know anything about how that there are like intellectual property rights. That didn't even mean anything to me. I had no idea what that even was. And so that's one thing, as I've cultivated, I love that word, but truly relationships with people all over the world who've shown me something that they would like to contribute to my art, or I found something and asked permission. And so I feel like my art is a collaboration. Like the moonshot kind of thing, how could that even happen? That's not even a question that I would ask somebody. Like, by the way, how do I get my art on the south node of the moon?
Right,
and it just came to me, like it came to me by grace, that I was told my art is going to be in a time capsule with a bunch of other art from other people around the world, created by a physicist who's now got it into a lunar landing module, because the lunar landing modules are going to the moon anyway to drop off supplies for the next manned mission to the moon.
Amazing.
And then there were, different people vying for like whose rocket, now that so many people have rockets, and Elon won the bid for his Viper rocket to go to the moon.
That's
So
amazing.
in my show, The Art of Art, we're going to go there and take pictures of the, videotape the lunar landing module, all that.
Are you going to get Elon on the show?
Hey, why not? I'll put that out there. I'll put that out there.
So what's been the biggest shift you've experienced in your day-to-day life in the last year?
Total gratitude. That I walk down the stairs in the morning. I wake up in the morning. I listen to my document, which thank God the magnificent Alan D. Thompson was willing to create for me an AI version of my document, which has music and a voice on it. So that's amazing. Before I get out of bed, I do that. I walk down the stairs. Gratitude is it. Gratitude for even what's not working. So I can be aware of it so that I can like tackle that.
If there was a question you wish you were asked today, what would that be?
I don't know. Wow, good question. Is there one you haven't asked me, or any of you guys?
No, it's one we ask every guest. I ask it in the Wake Up with Giants TV show too. It's a question that creates this in people. Like a lot of times we don't know what we want to even be asked, but what did that bring up for you?
I think because I do believe that I can really add value to people in their lives. I think that being part of my membership would be a beautiful thing to do, because it'll be so different. It'll be more about making miracles happen, and how do you do that in various contexts of your life. And, but for people who are ready for that, that would be one thing, I think.
To share that, to ask. So reach out to Becky and ask about that. And what that looks like. So that would be the question you'd want to be asked is, what does that look like? Or how do we learn about that? I like it. I like it. There's really nothing off the table here. So, my question is, how do you, this might be too long for this segment of the show, but how do you create that connection with Source, with God?
Every day.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your routines and rituals that allow you to get into that space. You talked about your sacred space, but what are some of your you talked about the declaration statement. What are some other routines or rituals that you have for keeping that connection with Source?
Nature is a big one for me. I live by the ocean, so I go walk on the beach. I like to walk on the beach at sunset and have that gratitude in my heart for another day. I do little things that matter for other people that I feel like it connects me to other people. I love connecting with the people in this group, and keeping commitments to people that I say I'm happy to talk to them. I've got kids calling me we sponsored a group of kids when they were 10 years old. They're now in their 40s and
holy cow.
We told them that if they kept their grades up and all that kind of stuff, they were in an inner city school, that we would pay for their college education. And there are several of those kids that still are in touch with me.
Holy cow.
Some of whom have had some really tough times, and some of whom have gone on to do amazing, great things. And so I'm in touch with those kids, and I feel like I'm equipped to give back now. And that's what keeps me connected to Source.
That's beautiful, because it's now about what you can do for others. And that's only a facet of it, though, because there's that creativity side, the download side, the desire side, the cultivation side. There's so many facets to Becky Robbins. It's not just one thing. For the viewers that are watching as we wrap up here, what would you like them to know?
That you're never not creating, and that your opportunity to make a difference in the world. And I don't like to say it in that way because it's such a trite kind of thing, but your opportunity to leave your mark, which is your legacy, that will then be like those ripples in a pond, is like right now. Like there's never been a more important time for humanity than right now for us all to get over ourselves and all this stuff that we talk about. It's like poor me and my past and all of that. Yes, it happened. It all happened. But now redefinition is the most important time. And we've got to save this world one person at a time, because it's happening, and it's happening quickly. Like, look how fast Christmas rolled around, and then it's going to be Easter, then it's going to be Christmas again. And then by next Christmas, I want to have a year even more powerful and impactful than this one has been for me. It's been the best year of my life ever.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So get out of your own way. Drop the stories.
Yeah, let it go. Let it go and give yourself freedom, because that's what we all want. We all are seeking freedom. That's the truth. Or freedom from what doesn't work, and the freedom to do what we wish we could do, and we can.
And you hold the keys to your own prison cell.
Yeah.
Right? Open it up. It's beautiful. Becky, thank you so much for being on with us. For everybody that's watching, join us in Birmingham in May of 2024. You can still get your tickets there. Rose, thanks for being behind the scenes here. People don't realize you're back there doing all the comments and sharing those. So thank you so much. Join us for our next masterclass. Thank you, Becky, again. And we will see you in the next masterclass. We'll announce that soon. And be sure to grab your tickets to Birmingham. It's coming up quicker.
I'll be there. Can't wait to meet
you. We hope you're there. You're pretty important to it. So
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you, and make it a giant day.
Okay.